Saturday afternoon in New York City. It's time for Big East basketball on Fox. There's a blizzard coming into town tomorrow, but today it's all about the Red Storm here at the world's most famous arena. St. John's looking for a 13th straight win as they host upset-minded Creighton here at MSG. We take a look at the Big East standings. The Johnnies have won a program record 12 straight Big East games. They sit in first place outright. UConn now a half game back after Creighton knocked off the Huskies on Wednesday. Another upset today might change the trajectory of the Blue Jays' entire season. We'll see if they can pull off another one as we welcome you courtside here. Great to be with you, Alex Faust. Donnie Marshall here with you. Creighton coming off their biggest win of the season. And St. John's right now, I know it was a bit of a gutsy performance against Marquette on Wednesday, but they look unstoppable.
Yeah, it's interesting when you don't lose a game for about 45 days, how you continue to sustain that. Well, Rick Pitino has shown we're going to change some things, but we're going to try to stay as consistent as possible. These guys just continue to fight. They're 5-0 in this building. They know how to take care of home. They are on fire. They're getting it from their bench. They're getting it from their starters, led by Zuby Ejiofor. Continues to be a stud.
Favorite for Big East Player of the Year. A win today would be the longest win streak for St. John's in 39 years. They've got the third longest active streak in the nation coming in.
Yeah, it's interesting. In those 12 wins, 6 of those are by single digits, meaning they're winning games big and they're winning them small, which is what championship teams do.
All right, our Geico player to watch today is Nick Graves, a season-high 18 points in that upset win against UConn on Wednesday.
Yeah, really has learned how to set the table for Greg McDermott and this crew. Knows what they need to do. He averaged 17 points a game last year at Charlotte, so he knows how to score the basketball, taking a back seat to that a little bit. He hits the start button for Creighton. They're going to need him from the beginning at MSG today.
Now, one of 3 players with a season high in a win over the Huskies earlier this week. A rematch of last year's Big East championship game. St. John's looking to remain alone in first place. The Blue Jays looking to shock the top of the league once again. A huge day of college hoops starts next from the Garden on Fox. Square Garden. St. John's going for a 13th straight win. They've won 14 out of 15 coming into the day. Let's get to the starting lineup, sponsored by Jeep. There's only one. Creighton with the same starting 5 they used the last game. Fedor Zugic made his first start as a Creighton Blue Jay, a breakout performance in his first career start, and he remains in the starting 5. And for St. John's, they will change things up and go back to the way things were with Osiah Sellers returning to the starting 5. He came off the bench Wednesday in that really tough win over Marquette. Rick Pitino, and I think his message, generally speaking, is there's still a little bit of untapped potential with his group, but he was really happy with the way that they've been playing lately.
They play so hard. You know, you can deal with mistakes when they're mistakes from aggression. And on the other side, obviously, Greg McDermott. I think it surprised a lot of people going to Gamble, winning that game. Even Coach McDermott himself, but he liked what he got from his team. They kept fighting, and they did something different. They didn't settle for threes. They got downhill. They're going to have to do that today.
Underway at Madison Square Garden. John Gaffney, Tim Clardy, and Greg Evans, our officiating crew. And here's Bryce Hopkins coming off arguably his best game as a member of the Red Storm. Dylan Mitchell off the mark. Here's a rebound right off the hop for Ejiofor, and he goes back up and draws a foul.
And that's what you worry about with Jason Green. He gives this team so much. He's an undersized big. He can play really all 5 positions, number 0 in blue there, but to have him with an early foul is just, it's not a start that you would want if you're Creighton. And if you're St. John's, this is what you expect from Zuby Ejiofor, dominating the glass early.
That's what you expect from this team as well, getting to the foul line, which has just been such a big part of their story. Top 5 in the nation in free throws attempted per game. And Ejiofor, the odds-on favorite for Big East Player of the Year at the foul line.
He leads the team in scoring, rebounds, assists, blocks. He really does stuff the stat sheet for a guy who is their star.
Pressure right off the hop for St. John's.
I like that. It's all about speeding up the tempo. I think, though, Creighton is going to have to play a little bit faster in this game today. We saw that If you watch that UConn game that Creighton won, they kept the pace, kept the tempo up. They created it early.
And went shot for shot with the Huskies all night on Wednesday. Step back three, Nick Graves coming off that big performance. And they're one and done, the rebound for Ejiofor.
And this is the concern right here. How do you get back in transition against the team that continues to just play downhill, make or miss?
Creighton just had an outstanding day from the field against UConn. And they lock things down defensively, but this is an off-kilter start. Numbers for the Johnnies. Mitchell, dump-off pass. Sellers, the finish. Right back into the starting lineup, and it's a 6-0 start for St. John.
And it's a St. John's team that averages 16 assists a game. They share it. They're not afraid to give that ball up. We heard the cliche, give up a good one to get a great one. They're one of the best in the country at showing that.
And they've been so good in transition lately. Graves, guarded by Sellers. Graves, pull up, tough shot. Rebound, Hopkins.
It's a good no call.
Hopkins, the drive, finishing through the contact. An 8-0 run to begin, and Greg McDermott has no choice. He burns an early timeout. St. John's off and running.
This is what I call mindless basketball. And now, as you've heard me say that before, it's not that you're not bright. It's just you don't have to think about running any plays. You use your abilities, your talent to get downhill. You're creating offense from your defense. And this is where St. John's is at their best. They are a freight train when you allow them to get out in transition. And it's a luxury to have bigs who can get out. Look at this. Bryce Hopkins gets the defensive rebound, straight lines, and gets the layup. That just can't happen for Creighton.
An 8-0 run with 4 different scores. You know, one of the areas of concern for St. John's is especially where they were in early January. This team looked like they might have been on the outside looking in. Was they didn't have a true point guard. They had all these different guys who had experience at that position, who could distribute the basketball. But how are they going to work in this pointless system? And so far, it's proven to be pretty good in conference play.
When you play like this, you don't need a point guard. You know, you just need able ball handlers, and we've seen that already from their forwards, breaking out, busting out, and getting downhill.
Last year, Big East championship game was a tight one at the half, and then St. John's pulled away with 57 in the second half as Dix throws this away. Second turnover for Creighton in the early going.
That's premeditated because Josh Dix probably could have gone all the way to the rim. He had a wide open lane. Instead, he looked in that deep corner for Trout. Got to have some feel, and I know Dix he's not a point guard, but when you're a scorer, you have to stay aggressive, especially in this building against St. John's.
Hopkins off the curl, the step back fadeaway short. Rebound for the Blue Jays. Zugic, 14 points. A breakout performance, his first career start on Wednesday. Downhill, it's Dix. And he pops and hits the fadeaway.
And that's his game right there. He had it to play before. The good thing about veterans is they can clean up their mistakes quicker than young guys.
Hopkins counted on a foul. Bryce Hopkins, the last 5 games, has reached another level, the level they thought he would reach here at St. John's.
I mean, over the 12-game win streak, he's averaging 15, 7 rebounds. He's above his averages, and you know, a lot of things have to be in working order when you win 12 in a row. It's not just 1 or 2 players. It's across the board, and they've all been playing at a higher level these last 12 legs.
Now, he said a lot about it. Obviously, everybody saw the Providence game and how he felt the team had his back in that moment. And he said afterwards he wanted to return the favor. Boy, did he ever against Marquette on Wednesday.
I mean, the best revenge is winning. It's success. We know that. So instead of cheap shotting someone, you know what? It stings more when you win.
23 points against Marquette for Bryce Hopkins. 6 to shoot here. Jason Green wearing that shoulder brace on his left arm. Goes up with a hook shot, side of the rim. Mitchell looking to keep the tempo going. Ejiofor fouled. And a lot of early fouls here for the Blue Jays. That's their 4th. Sorry, their 3rd.
And at some point, we've seen it now 3 times where a forward, whether it's Mitchell, Hopkins, gets the defensive rebound and they just go. And I'm not saying that someone from Creighton needs to stop them when they get the ball, but they have to be at half court waiting for them. They have to slow that ball down. There has to be some type of resistance before they get below the foul line.
How about you? This is maybe the fastest pace I've seen St. John's play at in a little while. And they're capable of, they show glimpses of it, but from the get-go, they have been in full sprint.
Well, this is what St. John's has done. At least most of the games that we've seen them play this year is they come out hungrier than the opponent. They don't wait to kind of feel their way through the first 5 minutes or before the first time out. They actually go and create the momentum and create the tempo. They also create a physicality that tells not only their opponents but the officials, this is how we're going to play. So officiate it the correct way, and look, if you're the opponent, you better play the right way or we're going to take off on you. And that's what they've done already today.
It was a blowout win in the first meeting, 90-73 over Creighton. There's Ejiofor diving for a loose ball. They'll jump it up, possession arrow to Creighton.
And Rick Pitino over there standing over his star clapping. You love to see, you know, those old school coaches not just praising with their words, but also with their hands, and just I love seeing that from coaches with their players.
He was even giving Zuby some tips on foul shooting in the last game. You saw that. It was wild. Zugic, the lob, tough catch for Karim Konan, and it's another turnover for Creighton. Sellers swatted, and Hudson Greer will knock this out of bounds.
Now, what you're finding with Creighton at times is they're putting guys in situations that aren't really comfortable being in those. If you talk about pick and rolls, drop coverage defensively, how do you get a big to guard a small? That was good help by Konan to come back and get back into the play, save a basket.
Greg McDermott knew coming into this season that Ryan Kalkbrenner did so much for them, hard to replace in every facet. Ejiofor's off the mark. Creighton just 1 for 4 from the field with 3 turnovers.
So I think you have to attack if you're Graves and you get 2 feet in the paint. You got to continue to maybe shoot a little fall away, get that paint, continue to stay, get that nose towards the rim. It's twice now Dix has gotten downhill after passing up that first one and turning it over.
Kick to the wings, Sannon. Joe Sannon, the sophomore. Meanwhile, Creighton quickly up court, and Harper corrals the outlet pass.
I don't know if people at home who did not see Blake Harper play the last game against UConn, he only played the last 8 minutes or so of that game and had 12 points.
Yeah, perfect for the field late in that game.
So to see him out here early, good sign for Creighton.
There's Harper again pulling down the board. The transfer from Howard. Bit of a late bloomer in his development. He's coming into his zone. Spot up 3 off the front of the rim.
I don't mind that. Got up and down a few times. Wasn't his first shot. And he is talented, Harper.
MEAC Player of the Year. A forearm shiver from Hopkins. Tap back out. Second chance for Sellers. And they'll reset. And that's a moving screen, it looks like, against Dylan Mitchell. St. John's, that early 8-0 run. Now, they found different ways this season, including from Josan Santos, 16-6 in the early going. Fox College Hoops is sponsored by Jeep. There's only one. And by Best Western Hotels and Resorts. This is the 4th Madison Square Garden in New York City. Used to be downtown at the actual Madison Square, one on 49th Street. And here, between 33rd and 31st, between 7th and 8th Avenues. And they've tried to play a lot more games here, St. John's, the last couple of years. You see their record at the Garden His first season, Rick Pitino, talking about restoring fan confidence in the program. He said for a long time, quote, we lost the brand. You know, Lou Carnesecca has been gone from coaching a long time. So we got to build the brand back, and then the people will come back. Well, it took a little bit of time, but this is the third straight 20-win season, and they have been filling this building up.
I give the team here at MSG a lot of credit because it's not just Knicks playing here. It's not just NBA. It's not just NHL. There are other events. There are concerts. There's a lot going on in this building to be able to schedule all of these things, especially college games. I mean, it takes a lot. So when you hear that from Rick Pitino, he's putting pressure on everyone.
Yeah. Out of the inbound, it's Owen Freeman. Nice pass. And underneath, it's Hudson Greer. St. John's has won 19 of their last 21 conference games here at MSG. And it's a packed house on what they're calling Johnny's Day. Trying to get alumni out here. There's Bryce Hopkins off the jump. Already with 7. Graves, top 10 of the Big East in assists coming into the day. Guarded by Dylan Darling, checking in for the first time. The undersized guard has made a big impression in New York. Hopkins deflects the loose ball. It's Darling diving for it, and he's able to shovel it ahead for Lefteris Leftopoulos. Now we're going to call a foul.
I think that's a carry on Lefty. I think he was expecting some contact. You'll see it. Right, I love guys getting on the floor. Darling, of course, you're always going to see him on the floor in games multiple times a game, but a little contact, a little carry. Put it back down. Good pressure by Graves. Good call.
Yeah, good call on that. Leotopoulos, who had a big game against Creighton earlier this year. There's Darling with the block. Ball out of bounds. And it goes back to St. John's. This kid is something special, Dylan Darling.
A little bit too much of the double clutch. Go straight up. You know, you hang in there. You're not the biggest guy if you're Nick Graves. Sometimes you got to get that body. You only have a split second to get it off. You hang. Now Ruben Prey comes over, and you called it. Dylan Darling has been a stud. Did you see his numbers there the last 3 games? But he is their inspiration. And you could also say he's their glue. He just keeps everyone together. Knows his role.
This is going to be a foul on Ruben Prey away from the ball.
Yeah, Ruben Prey doing a little bit too much. When you have a size advantage down there, instead of putting your hands behind you to hold the little guy, put your hands up. And you have to have trust in your guard to throw it to a place that only you can catch it when you have a smaller guy behind you.
Creighton going into their deep rotation. Ty Davis and Owen Freeman. It's popped away, kick ball. Leotopoulos kicking it away.
And what you need to do when you come into this building and you're playing against St. John's, especially a St. John's team that obviously is a national power now, you have to play with confidence. You have to stay aggressive if you're Creighton. You can't come in the game as a starter, as a bench player, and just kind of meander around. You have to force your will against the St. John's team in this building. You're passive, boy, it's like blood in the water. They are sharks.
Dix off the mark from 3. Rebound Leotopoulos, who's turned into a player that they've utilized more and more. Entry pass, play, tough catch. And go out of bounds.
Nice help by Harper. He was on the ball. He saw the pass float in the air. He backed up. You don't normally see that by guys pressuring the basketball. They turn, they look, and now it's too late. That was really good help by Harper. We talked about it. He's playing catch-up. We talked to Greg McDermott before the game. Harper started playing basketball as a senior in high school. Only a sophomore here.
No miscommunication. The turnover from Darling. Bounce pass. A foul. That's the second for Prey. And about a minute.
We've seen a couple times now. Now, obviously, this is a turnover, but Creighton getting out in transition, beating them long. Bigs cannot, if you're St. John's, Ruben Prey is too athletic to be beaten down the floor. And I know he was down low, buried in that paint. You got to run your tail off to get back. You should not be getting beat down the floor. But Owen Freeman, as good as he was last year, he is a shell of himself. His body has not been right all season. Really hasn't been right since last February. He's been battling a lot.
He had a season-ending finger injury last January and then meniscus surgery over the summer.
I mean, he initially went out in February, Alex, and didn't do any basketball activities until this past October. That's a long time to be down. Now you change schools, new scenery, great, but your body's still not right.
He was a good scorer for Iowa.
Terrific.
Edge of 4. Calls his own number.
Well, I like the idea of making him a mid-range jump shooter, but you have to contest it. You can't stand there and watch him. He's just too proficient at knocking those shots down.
Leotopoulos a little grab.
I think that's a foul. You know, you're you got your back to him and you reach your arm in. It's a good call. I don't think the St. John's fans agree, but they didn't get to see the replay like we did. They don't show those on the Jumbotron.
They don't show the bad ones. Dix draws edge of 4. Harper kicks. Career extra pass.
Look at the closeouts.
Yeah, Mitchell coming over to help close. Wow. That's contested in the corner. Freeman picks up the loose change. Couldn't finish underneath.
Even that, Owen Freeman just tentative on the finish. Knows you got to dunk.
Yeah, he might have been expecting contact or something. Leotopoulos off the curl, off the mark from 3. Dix with the outlet too tall for Freeman. A double-digit lead in the early going for St. John's. Deep rotation for this Johnny's team in the last couple games. And they're showing it in the early going here at the Garden.
New York, New York. This seems like it's a grinded out wrestling match.
Look at him play, folks. It's all on the line.
Oh, my goodness.
Ow! What?
This place is a madhouse.
Last year's Big East Championship game between Creighton and St. John's. We take a look at By the Numbers, sponsored by Vivid Seats, home of the lowest price guaranteed. Download the app today. You see last season's records. This is a down year for Creighton. I think we expected a bit of that coming in, but disappointing in a number of ways. And yet, you come off an upset win over UConn. You're feeling pretty good. How can you follow that up?
Well, right now, Creighton needs to unplug it and then plug it back in. That usually fixes everything. So
blow on the cartridge a little?
Yeah. But communication has to be better at this end, but also a sense of urgency. You know, sometimes good teams play their opponent's record, and sometimes the teams with a bad record play their own record. You got to believe you're better than you're playing right now if you're Creighton, and they're right now getting dominated in the paint. That's 12 of the 22 points for St. John's in the painted area.
Edge of 4 already with 8 points and 3 rebounds. Going to be a foul here on the Johnnies. Sellers is tagged with it. Now Josh Dix, you mentioned him in the early going. He had a season high 21 against UConn. He was great in the second half of that game. 13 points, a perfect 3 for 3 from deep, and obviously he's had a challenging season to say the least. Has been well documented. His mom Kelly passed away earlier this month. Years-long battle with cancer, and boy, it's been tough on the entire team at times. I think they're all going through grief collectively.
Yeah, I had a long talk with him before the game. Gave him a big hug. I don't know him from Adam, but just kind of told him that everyone is thinking about him, and this is, you know, this 2 hours can be some therapy for you. Beautiful. Harper's tough. I mean, he really is. He's raw. We talked about he's only been playing organized basketball for a couple of seasons, and look, he played at Hampton last year. was a big-time scorer, great player, but now you come to a bigger conference, a bigger program that has higher expectations than anything you've ever experienced before. So the entire year's been a learning process for Harper.
There's Harper again being called for a foul.
Yeah, one thing he does know how to do is score the ball. I love the clear out, sees the help, fake help there from Darling, and he continues to go at Sellers, who's a little bit smaller. I think a steady diet of that. Jason Green as well, when they have smaller players on them, just to see how St. John's plays that, where the double may come or where the help or the stunt, as we call it, it's a fake and get back to yours, may come from.
Darling initiated the contact with Green, then threw it away.
So a little bit of a lull here if you think about what's happening on St. John's side. This is a great time for Creighton to now, you gotta fight through what you've gotten to this point. You have 6 turnovers, 5 made field goals, be a little bit more sharp and try to cut into this lead while St. John's has slowed down a bit.
This is the top volume 3-point shooting team in the league, and they've yet to hit one this afternoon, averaging more than 10 per game from deep. Trying to go to the low post here, and Freeman kicks it out. Zugic, that's a three. That's a big one.
Good to see that go down, not just for Zugic, but for the entire team. Knowing that the lid is off a little bit.
Sannon, and he's unable to get the roll. Now Creighton looking to ratchet up the tempo a little. Zugic off the crossover. Leotopoulos guarding him. Wild take, and it hit the top of the backboard and the shot clock, and it wound up being called out of bounds. Back to St. John.
I do like that, though. Zugic trying to attack. It's going the other way, but now you have an opportunity to get back, get your defense set up. We've seen them before, jump in the air, throw it, and now it's a pick six the other way. At least you're attacking one, and you get to get back here and get set up.
Well, against the Huskies earlier this week, it was the lockdown defense late in the game that was the difference. I know they were going shot for shot early, but UConn struggled from the floor late in that game.
Yeah, they just knew who to attack, whose feet to attack defensively. Creighton did a nice job.
Speaking of, as they go right at Santa. Zugic, a touch pass to the corner. That's unfortunate. Unforced error with Harper stepping out.
It happens a lot, especially with younger players, because when they catch it, their pivot foot is down, but their push-off foot always goes behind them, where you'll know when you get to that next level, that pivot foot works as your push-off, so you're going forward and not stepping back first.
6 turnovers now for Creighton. Sannon on the take.
Easy. Just too easy. No help, no resistance on the curl. There's got to be someone stepping in, and you got to continue to trail hard.
Rick Pitino said he wanted to give him that spot start to help engage his confidence a bit. Seems to have responded well. Zugic lines it up and knocks it down. It's a couple of threes for the junior from Montenegro. And a timeout is called by Rick Pitino. The lead has been trimmed to 6.
Josan Sannon, great athlete. Can stroke it, but look at this. Really nice pick by Zuby. Easy in the paint. No resistance. And the other end, you got to fight through these. You got to switch or get over it. Got a good one here in the Garden.
Big East basketball is sponsored by Jeep. There's only one. Alex Faust, Donnie Marshall here with you. Madison Square Garden, 8.5 to go. First half, and a 6-point lead for St. John's. Let's go inside the Red Storm huddle.
Let's run quick. Run quick. Okay? Now, no more mistakes. Mental mistakes kill you. It's all about scouting. Make sure you understand what to do every single play.
Yeah, it's interesting. They started the game with temerity. It was an 8-0 run. Now they've slowed down a little bit. Creighton started 4 for 13 and made 3 of their last 4. So starting to get a little bit of confidence on their side, but also St. John's, like you heard in the huddle there, some mental breakdowns. Now, Usually those mental breakdowns happen when there's not great communication. You know, if you're talking, constantly talking, guys know where they're supposed to be. And you don't know if you're supposed to switch out, stay with yours. They got to just clean that up a little bit on defense compared to the last 3 or 4 minutes of St. John's.
Zone here for Creighton showing, and they cause a turnover. It's going to be a foul on Ejiofor here as he falls over top of Green.
It's just a tough angle. You know, you have someone, Alex, on the wing. Zuby's so big, his chest is facing the sideline. So you know what? Let's throw it to the wing, and now we can enter it that way. When you try to swing around, and I know what the call was out of the timeout there, get it to Zuby, but got to be more efficient with your passing, especially when you have a guy who can really get it done down there.
There's Darling, who strips it from Graves. Ejiofor! A thunderous finish. That'll wake him up.
Wow. Someone needs to just relay the message to Zuby that we need that hoop for the rest of the game.
The Knicks need it later today.
Exactly.
What the heck with this game? Graves draws the double. Freeman, the escape fouled.
That's a smart play and a good play by Freeman to not settle for that little mid-range jumper. And that's really how they beat UConn. You know, they're spaced, they got downhill, and there's that guy in the 0. Again, he just kind of comes up with the big plays when they need it, whether it's, we saw the play before, diving on the floor, creating a turnover, little jump shot there.
Zugic with the ball in his hands. There's an injury here away from the ball. Nick Graves is shaken up, and they stop play.
You know, Dylan Darling doesn't do a lot of his stuff with great athleticism. It's just timing. He's a good athlete, but a lot of his big plays are timing. Sees you put that down, he times the dribble, throws it ahead, always keeping his head up. Uses that screen so well. Nick Graves, that may be where the injury came from. If you run into a Zuby or a Bryce Hopkins screen, that would smart a little bit.
Dix having to peer around Mitchell, finds Zugic in the corner, and another triple. And the lead down to 5. Creighton just chipping away here.
Got to know the scouting report. Zugic wants to pull up over there, especially on those out-of-bounds underplays.
Shannon short from 3. Zugic looking ahead. He'll push the pace. It's stolen by Mitchell. Counter for the Johnnies. Sellers on the take. Counted and a foul.
Fedor Zugic, you have to understand. Anytime a player gets in the air, they have the athleticism edge. I just want to give them the 2 and just take your medicine and let's get the ball inbound and go the other way. But that's an easy call. Great athletes on the St. John's side. They get out in transition. It's a wrap if you are not coming up with a big block at the rim.
Isaiah Sellers, who came out of the starting lineup for the first time all year on Wednesday, but he's been an under-the-radar contributor.
Now, I never had a problem. You know, people say, would you rather start? Would you rather come off the bench? I think when you come off the bench, you know your role is, you understand what it is better. You go in there to heat it up. You go in there to change the momentum. You go in there to be an offensive force. Starting's great, too. Don't get me wrong. I love being a starter, but you just have a more defined role when you come in off the bench. So I think he's really taken a hold of that and understood that I have to be aggressive offensively. Getting a pat on the back by the head coach, never a bad sign.
Ty Davis at the front end of a 1-on-1 after Sellers picks up his second. Creighton, a pretty good foul shooting team. It's 75% on the season. They are dead last in the Big East in free throw attempts as Davis splits the pair.
Now they got there 32 times against UConn.
Yeah.
Made 27 of them. That was a huge difference maker in that game.
It's a season high by far, those 32 trips. The previous high was 25. Hopkins off the hezzy. And hits the mid-range jumper.
That is Hopkinsville. That elbow, you can just call that Hopkinsville. He gets there, it is pretty high percentage of those are going down for Bryce.
Zugic wants to take this game over. A wild shot. Tie up Freeman. And it'll be a jump ball possession there on St. John's.
Right here, that's his sweet spot. Mark it down.
You know those church bell awards they've been handing out after the whole Dylan Darling thing? Well, Hopkins has won the last 2 of them.
Yeah. That's good for him. I know I've mentioned it a lot, ad nauseum probably, if you've watched these St. John's games, but he only played 17 games his previous 2 seasons before this year. So this is the most he's been on the floor in a long time in terms of start to finish during the season. Hitting his stride at the right time.
Foul on the floor here. Zugic picks up his second.
But Bryce Hopkins, just such a wonderful, wonderful young man. We saw the cheap shot that he felt at Providence, returning to his old school. Even one of his former teammates at Providence grabbed him to make sure he was okay, along with how you mentioned earlier, his own teammates. But just, it's sad to see that. But Bryce Hopkins is one of the kindest human beings you will ever meet, and just a phenomenal athlete.
Creighton. Turn this one over once again. Greg McDermott not happy with that foul away from the ball.
Yeah, you don't see Greg McDermott getting that animated a lot. And that's an illegal screen. I think refs have to clean that up. I think they've gotten sloppy with not calling those. Those dribble handoffs, you turn sideways, you lean into those screens up top.
Darling got hit twice. And the second one will be whistled.
Well, good thing is they only called you for one of those 2 fouls you committed if you're Josh Diggs.
Now Darling at the stripe. You know, St. John's on this 12-game win streak. During the first game of this streak, he didn't play a single minute against Butler. Wasn't happy with his own play, and Rick Pitino obviously wasn't happy with how he had been playing leading up. It was very much a reserve. Didn't see a lot of action. Said after the game, Pitino to Darling, I just want you to play like a junkyard dog. And he has ever since, and he has been a big contributor. Meanwhile, it's Green on the deck, and you see that brace. Always a concern if he's hitting the deck with the shoulder injury he's been dealing with.
Yeah, he doesn't need the other one now banged up. I mean, Jason Green has been a workhorse, to say the least, for this Creighton team. He can play and has played every position for them. You'll see him as the roller in pick and rolls catching lobs. You'll see him as the ball handler. I mean, and you see that one shoulder, that left shoulder, he's played through that. It's hard. One of the hardest injuries to play through is that shoulder, especially when you're a physical player like Jason Green.
It's going to check out here. And so Harper is at the stripe. Ten-point lead for St. John's, carrying the third active winning streak in the nation. Miami's still unbeaten. Liberty has won 17 in a row. Free throw rattles out.
Yeah, Travis Steele getting it done at Miami of Ohio. 27 games straight. That's pretty special. And I know their strength of schedule is not great and wasn't early season, but still 27 wins in a row is 27 wins in a row.
Davis with Darling coming back to defend and to break up. what would have been a fast break.
27 wins in a row. 27 wins. Wow. Really good work there. Both ways.
Full send from number 0 at all times.
Greg Evans is he's got to work on his foot speed. The official. He's got to work on that lateral movement, Greg.
Under 5 minutes to play in the half. Creighton just trying to stay within touching distance here. Greer for Freeman. Trying to back down his man and Hopkins. And a jump hook finish.
I think they may have found something, Creighton. If you can keep guys spaced, they're not going to double down there. It's going to be one-on-one. If you can get Freeman in a good spot, give him some room, let him go to work in that paint.
Darling for Mitchell, slicing down the lane. Boy. Lays it in with a left.
I mean, he plays with an NBA-type efficiency. He's got length. He's got all the attributes that you can't teach. Dylan Mitchell, I mean, he is an NBA player, without a doubt.
Popped around, and Leotopoulos saves it. Mitchell, who didn't attempt a single shot against Marquette. He finds Ejiofor, who draws contact. And we have a timeout on the floor. St. John's in control in the early going.
Those are teams that I feel are national title contenders. Florida's the defending champs. They have the front line that can match up with Michigan. Houston is arguably the most physical team in the country. The 3 guards that they have are 3 of the best in the country, led by Kingston Flemings. That's going to be a hard road for the overall #1 seed.
Brutal. For UConn, you said Mike DeCourcy had them on as a 1 seed. Their loss to Creighton at home. Creighton's ranked 74th, and then it clearly bumped them down. But really interesting, take a look at Texas Tech. They were a 3 seed, we were told. Their loss at Arizona State, where they lost J.T. Toppin, one of the best players in the country, knocked them down to the 4. I don't think you can really make the argument currently, because he's out for the season, J.T. Toppin. I don't know if you can make the argument that Texas Tech is a top 16 team today.
Bonus points for Miles, the group of death reference, 110 days out from the FIFA World Cup live on Fox. Good job, Miles. Bryce Hopkins, he's got 9 points, 3 boards. His Johnnies are up, but are they the best in the Big East? Miles says...
There is no place like Madison Square Garden. This is special, guys. When you're playing in that building, it's a different animal than anywhere else. It is a complete sellout. This is Big East basketball at its best. We are in the mecca of basketball, in the greatest city in the world.
10 turnovers, and they're still up double digits. Last season, the Johnnies, they earned the Big East double, winning the regular season and the tourney title. With the 5th-ranked Huskies loss to Creighton midweek that you talked about last segment, it's now the Johnnies that are atop the conference standings. Are they, though, Casey, the top team in the Big East?
Yeah, they very might be. The gap between UConn and St. John's was like this in the non-conference, and it's now like this. And remember, this is a UConn roster that had continuity, Miles. They brought back a lot of their roster. Of course, they bring, the transfer Silas Demery to fill in that point guard spot. But this is a brand new St. John's roster. It took way longer than we thought for them to get going.
Yeah, I think this UConn team is still the best in the Big East. And they've hit a little lull, and I try to stay away from like recency bias. So they're 2-2 in their last 4, but they have been playing unlike how they've been playing most of the year. 39% they've given up from 3 in those last 4 games. Normally they've been 30% or below in Big East play. I think Solo Ball has to really get going. He has 8 points per game only in those two losses. Danny Hurley and company, they'll figure it out, and they'll be the beast of the East.
Oh, by the way, Wednesday, St. John's in Hartford taking on the Huskies. Yeah, for sure. Slow start and a soft close to the first half of the Blue Jays. They have never led. Second half from the Garden next.
control the crowd. You know I hold it down when it drop. You know it's deep when you hear the sound. From town to town until it's world renowned. And I rock New York City all year round.
My rhymes and lyrics find spirits like a seance.
15-point lead for St. John's at the half. An 8-0 run to begin, an 8-0 run to close the half. Creighton shooting just 37% from the floor. And of course the Johnnies once again led by their top player in Zuby Ejiofor. Alex Faust, Donnie Marshall back here with you courtside. We've seen a little bit of what makes him the favorite to win Big East Player of the Year.
Yeah, he just adds so much to the game. He does everything so well. We talked about it. He leads the team in every category. And what I like most about him is he's not one-dimensional. Here's a terrific pass that he makes, threads the needle to Bryce Hopkins. Just head up. Always kind of aware, fighting. Obviously, we know this part of his game, and then his athletic ability. And I couldn't give you just one angle, so I'm going to turn the camera for you so you can really get full effect of how good this dunk was. So much power. You know, Zuby Ejiofor coming into today, 21 of 26 games in double figures, 7 of those at 20 or more points. I think he's headed that way for his 8th.
And he was named this week a semifinalist for the Naismith National Player of the Year as well. He'll get some consideration for sure.
And the first St. John's player ever to be picked the preseason Big East Player of the Year, which was astounding to me. I played against some not good but great St. John's players. I could not believe that when I read that.
So underway in the second half. Creighton going to need a rally here.
Oh, good cut.
Beautiful pass to find Dix. And a great cut, to your point, Don.
Yeah. Heads up play. They need Graves right now to get his guys. I always talk about it. Set the table, get guys where they're supposed to be, and be ready to score when you have to.
Sellers short from 3. Mitchell, that's a tough physical rebound. Ejiofor locating Mitchell behind the back. And now Sellers leaves it short. Zugic leading the way for Creighton with 9 points, all of them from 3. Ejiofor sizing up Graves. Ejiofor stuffing the stat sheet the first half.
Good job by Sellers, though, pushing Green out to that logo, get him away from the basket.
Isaac Trout. I haven't mentioned his name yet today.
And he's sometimes a matchup problem. Really did a nice job of pulling Terrace Reed away from the basket in that UConn game.
And he can be a really tough three-point shooter as well. Mitchell off the mark. And a rebound pulled down by Dix. Fed to the corner. Zugic. No. Trout knocked out of his hands. Zugic right place, right time to reset. Dix stealing with Hopkins. Now Trout with 5 to shoot. Dix has to go. Dix, step back 3, contested. Off the mark.
Just not comfortable there, especially when you have that outstretched hand of Bryce Hopkins, who's so athletic. Good late challenge.
Look out, Mitchell left alone, misfires.
And this is where you got to take advantage of for Creighton. Get downhill, continue to keep them on their heels. But
hello, Dylan Mitchell.
He's everywhere. I mean, we talk about Dylan Darling and the job that he's done and on the floor all over the place. But what about Mitchell? Both ends, keeping the ball alive, chasing it back. Good setup there by Darling. Blocked by Mitchell. And Nick Graves has played with a grimace on his face the entire game, whether he's banged up. It is that time of year. We've seen that. We've seen it around the country. Guys getting hurt. It's just one of those things you almost have to get a little lucky to be healthy this time of year.
He had a season high 36 minutes against UConn on Wednesday, but he has yet to hit from the floor as Darling is knocked off his feet, but gets called for the foul, his second. Creighton, three-point shooting has just not been there yet today.
No, 35% on the year. Just the looks have not been open. The turnovers have really hurt them, though. That's their 10th of the game. And only 11 field goals made. That's just not a... Not a good balance.
Keep in mind they had 8 the entire game against UConn. Graves, that's his first make of the afternoon. And it trims the deficit back to 10.
And it's, look, it's a small thing. It's big for Creighton, but it's a little thing because now Darling's going to have to respect it a little bit. It's going to stretch their defense out and maybe create some lanes for Creighton to get to the rim.
Hopkins draws a foul. He'll head to the line for 2.
I think this is how you combat Darling. You get him on his heels and then you pull up. You use that elevation. Graves has to do more of that, but the shot selection has to be more efficient. It has to be a little bit more intelligent. You do have to search a little. I always think that's a difficulty for the guards playing against St. John's because they're so athletic, they're so long. They force you to speed up a little bit because they do play with more pace.
Hopkins converts the 2 at the line.
I mean, that's 16 attempts from the line for St. John's and only 7 for Creighton.
And we talked about how much that changed the complexion of their upset win on Wednesday, but they've not been able to follow it up.
They just haven't been able to create the lanes to get downhill like they were against UConn. There's one as we say it. Oh,
Green unable to finish. Struggled against UConn, and that's continued here today. Deep 3, Shannon, no. St. John's missing quite a bit to begin the second half. They're 0 for 6 from the field. There's Green, is able to lay it in this time.
St. John's up 10, and they are 1 of 8 from three-point range. We've seen them in the past win games without being a great three-point shooting team. But they're different this year. They have some guys who can knock it down. Just haven't seen it today.
Shannon from mid-range. Three-point shooting was a big part of their story when they lost in the tournament to Arkansas last year. Just 2 for 22 in that game. But to your point, they've got 4 players on the roster shooting 35% or better from 3. Creighton is trying to stay within touching distance. Dix lines it up for the corner, skips it off the rim. Mitchell's piling up the rebounds. That's his 9th. Mitchell going coast to coast to finish with the left.
We've seen that 4 or 5 times, maybe a half a dozen times where the forwards from St. John's grab that rebound, get out on the break, and just no one slows the ball down. Got to be more respectful of those forwards.
Double clutch from Graves. Now the possession reset. Sugic, they create some space for him. Peeling for a foul, none given.
And St. John's defense today just makes you want to hurry up and get rid of the ball. I mean, that's how Creighton's playing. They can't wait to get the ball out of their hand. I think it's due to the pressure. Yeah, it's a tough one down there for Green.
Winds up grabbing Ejiofor. And the lead is 14 after this coast-to-coast layup from Mitchell.
Yeah, gotta, I don't know, throw a shoe at him, something. Take your jersey off and cover his eyes, something. Get in front of the guy.
That's a vibe. Oh, it's a vibe.
Last year, saw teams that kind of use that as a springboard to this season.
If you want to win next year, you better play in the crown. Because it's got a track record already. Some pretty darn good teams played in that last year.
What a season Nebraska's put together. I mean, went a good half of the year before picking up their first loss.
And it's rare that you see a guy like Fred Hoiberg have to go through the struggles that he did and stay in that position. It says a lot about their administration, the athletic director at Nebraska who's hung in there and believed in Fred Hoiberg. It's awesome to see. It doesn't happen. It's very rare in college basketball. I mean, really rare in all sports today.
Meanwhile, Creighton just down the road where they're trying to find any which way to put together a run here. They have not won back-to-back games since December. They have not won back-to-back games in conference play at all this year. And I know they can move into 4th place in the Big East outright with a win here today, but that consistency has been hard to come by for this Blue Jays team. I wonder if they might be a team that goes in the crowd and tries to use that as a building block with a younger team. Wow, that's an and one underneath.
You know, Sellers is another one of those kind of rangy players. If he's not knocking down shots, watch him just coming out of the right side of your screen, sneaking behind. Keep that guy in front of you a little bit. Just hides behind Dix. But again, it shows you the passing prowess that the St. John's team has. They share the basketball. They're very unselfish. All but 6 of their field goals today have been helpers.
How about the defense out of the inbound?
And you talked about it. Creighton has struggled to put together a coherent stretch of plays on either end, offensively or defensively.
Well, the one demand from Rick Pitino, game in, game out, just be tough to play against defensively. We've shown that here today. Forcing 11 turnovers from Creighton. They've had the Blue Jays number this year, that's for sure. Largest margins at the half both come against Creighton. Santa, Trovic, bounce pass, edge of 4, goes up strong.
You add power, toughness, speed to a team like St. John's, and then throw in there the offensive sets that they're able to run in the half court. It's really what's catapulted them really to the position they're in this year.
They've got a veteran, a couple of them really, at the heart of it all. Edge for the senior from Garland, Texas.
It's just a nice drop off late with the help, but pretty good D. Zuby Ejiofor is just too powerful when he catches it that close to the basket.
You mentioned that Zuby, the preseason player of the year. If he wins the Big East player of the year this year, it'll be the first time St. John's has had a winner in back-to-back years since Chris Mullen won it 3 times in a row in the mid-'80s. Wow. It's crazy to think about. Last year, of course, it was R.J. Lewis winning player of the year.
And if you're Creighton right now, don't worry about that scoreboard. You got to take those between the TV timeouts, those 4-minute wars is what we call it. Try to win that 4-minute battle and chip away. And how you do that is, look, you put plays together, get a defensive stop, get a bucket at that end, and come down here and get another stop.
Darling, line drive release. Gets the front of the rim. On-ball defense here from Hopkins. Trying to get the switch. Harper driving against Mitchell. Goes off the glass. No. Tap back out. Numbers for the Johnnies. And a little out of control from Darling, but get the benefit of the foul. Hard collision between he and Ty Davis. Second foul for Davis.
I got to give Josh Dix a lot of credit. You don't see a lot of players giving up their body like this. Most guys are flopping. They're turning sideways. That's a tough take right there where you just say, I don't care. I'm giving up my body. I don't care what the score is. See, I know I wouldn't be a great ref because that would be a sympathy call for me. I'm like, you know what? They're down. This kid's giving up his body. You know, we're going the other way. Maybe it's not the right call, but I feel for him. We're going the other way. Offensive foul.
Dylan Darling at the line, who's become Quite the X factor, the smallest player on the floor for St. John's.
I mean, you talk about toughness, you know, these dads who are football players. Darling, another one of those kids, comes from some tough roots.
Harper running the baseline. And he's able to locate Freeman in the front court, but Creighton unable to take advantage of the numbers.
You got to go. You can't dribble out to the wing. That's Greer just not comfortable in that position. Maybe even throw it back down to your big fella.
Swartz, I called his name. And you can get a sense for where Creighton is at in their development. A young team that just has yet to gel.
I mean, that play says it all right there. You got a 2-on-1, and then you dribble out to the corner.
Darling downhill. He has some motor. But that's the next step for a Creighton team that looks like they're going to miss out on a 20-win season and an NCAA tournament bid. They've gone to the tournament 5 years in a row. Popped away from Davis. Numbers for St. John's on a 3-on-1. Hopkins with a soft finish.
You know what I like about that play? You got a big lead, and Mitchell doesn't throw an alley-oop. You know, you just be solid, get it to your teammate, let him go finish. I know some people would want a big finish, a loud finish, but I like that. Get the 2 points, pile it on. Awesome here, sharing the ball, Dillon to Dillon, and another one from Mitchell to Hopkins. St. John's in control.
Famous arena, Madison Square Garden. Madison Square Garden. Madison Square Garden, the home of the Big East tournament.
You guys have a chance to be part of the greatness.
Are you telling me there's no magic in this house tonight?
The best basketball conference in the country, bar none. That's why we came here.
Fox College Hoops is sponsored by Progressive. Progressive Insurance offers 24/7 protection when you bundle home, auto, and motorcycle. And by Kubota, your compact equipment provider. Look at the all-time wins list. Rick Pitino, third most, passing Roy Williams earlier this season. And you look at the turnaround since coming back to the Big East and guiding this program. Now 20 wins in each of his first 3 seasons at the helm. That only happened one time in the previous 8 years here at St. John's.
That is. Look, you knew when he took the job, he came in with a passion. He could already coach, but he came in with a passion, telling everyone, I didn't know if I would ever coach again when I left it. And when you bop around and you go to, you go overseas and then come back to a small school, you know you still have the passion and the love. And sometimes you got to get yourself recentered. Well, tell you what, Rick Pitino and this St. John's team are squarely in the middle. They know exactly who they are because of that man. And it's where they should be. You're in the Mecca. New York is the city of gods, as they say, and they have shown that since he's been back, and especially this season, going for their 13th in a row.
Darling fouled. Actually, they were just going to call this out of bounds, all ball from Swartz. I look around the stands, too, and I know today is a special occurrence because they've got this Johnny's Day initiative going around, tons of red in the stands. We've seen a couple people wearing the Lou Carnesecca type sweaters, which is kind of fun to see. But they've so invigorated the fan base here, and winning does that, no doubt. But the way that they've gone about their business has really re-energized this proud fan base.
You know what you get too from them? No entitlement. I mean, it just feels like New York in this building. You know, you walk outside. I always get to the city a little bit early. I got my coffee spot I like. Yeah. But you just want to, it gives you an invigoration walking around this city. You just feel a sense of just pride and urgency at the same time, you know. That's how I think that's how Rick Pitino's team is built too. No entitlement, earning everything, don't expect anything, go out there and earn it.
Just to put a period on that, because that was the big word coming out of the signature win they had over UConn earlier this year. This is Stores South no more. Come the Big East tournament, there's going to be a lot of red in this building.
Rick Pitino did say, though, before that game, there's going to be 10,000 St. John's fans and 9,000 UConn fans. So even, I think, in those words, he wasn't quite sure how the balance was going to be. Well, it is tipped clearly back to the Johnnies. No question.
Creighton, in their hopes of building on their upset over UConn on Wednesday, it's fallen flat. 21-point lead for the Johnnies.
And now just to slow the bleeding a little bit, they go to a zone 1-3-1.
Darling can't slow him down.
You know, sometimes when you talked about it earlier, having a new team, a young team, they think you get in that zone, it's a time to rest. I think you got to work even harder. Your work rate has to be higher in the zone.
Another steal from Darling, another run out for the Johnnies. Mitchell caught at the rim. Awkward fall.
Just took off a little bit too far out to dunk that. Probably could have just laid it up, but even maybe overestimated his own length. I know he's a long, rangy player. Just has been such a wonderful piece for St. John's. Can do a little bit of everything.
That's where the real hope is for this team, is that they don't become one-dimensional come tournament time.
Look, NCAA tournament, we know it all comes down to you got to make the deep ball. You just do. There are going to be a lot of games won by making 1 or 2 threes. You got to make multiple threes. You got to have guys who can knock it down and stretch out the defenses.
Another turnover for Creighton.
And obviously St. John's has that. They have plenty of guys who can make shots, who can create shots, find their own.
Ruben Prey gonna give it a go.
8 for him this season.
Yep.
He shot it like it was his 88th.
Right. All smiles all around the Garden this afternoon. Zugic kicks it back out, and Graves is short from 3, and this poor shooting afternoon continues for the Blue Jays, especially in the second half. Just 3 for 15 from the floor. Ruben Prey, sophomore from Lisbon, Portugal.
Yeah, we said this earlier with Zubiejifor. You can dare them to shoot it, but at least you have to run at them. You can't just allow. Guys work on this every day. I don't care what position you are in college. You're working on that. So to allow him just to be in the middle of a shooting drill with 9.5 minutes to play is just not going to bode well for you defensively. You got to run at guys, contest a little bit.
Prey, turn to the corner, jump hook, yeah. Everything's working.
You talk about retention, you know, we don't talk enough about that with Ruben Prey. Hanging, probably could have gone and found some money elsewhere. Great athlete. He's continued to evolve every season. He's another one of those retention guys that just has a lot of pride for his school. He stayed here and showed it.
Bounce pass, Dix, tough look. Nothing's come easy. Some of it self-inflicted. Darling out of control. Creighton 7+ minutes without a make from the floor. St. John's has run away with this.
I mean, Dylan Darling he's showing him everything right now. We know he's a junkyard dog. He comes up with steals and keeps balls alive and can make the extra one and knock down shots. Now he's in there like a whirling dervish in transition.
St. John's on the verge of a 13th straight win, something they haven't done since 1985. They won a program record 14 straight.
But if I'm not mistaken, that was to start the season that year.
Be going on 50+ days if they close this out since they've last lost a game. The third longest active winning streak in the nation. And even in a down year for the conference, putting the nation on notice. Freeman left it short. I think we also talked about Donnie, how these games are of incredible importance, given where their resume is at and given what seeding they're trying to get to at the tournament to avoid a tough first-round matchup. You got to take care of these games, and they're doing so this afternoon. Everything going the Johnny's way. Zuby Ejiofor get a breather on a Saturday afternoon on a 31-point lead.
Fox.
Big East basketball is sponsored by Jeep. There's only one. Alex Faust, Donnie Marshall here with you on a day that has belonged to St. John's from the get-go. 31 points. Creighton only has 38 points in this game, and we've got 8 minutes to play. Their leading scorers have all been shut down.
I mean, that tells you the story right there. That's good scouting by St. John's. They knew who to take out of this game early. Here it was Graves. Now early, really one of the first plays of the game, Jason Green had a foul guarding Zuby and then just couldn't get it going offensively. But the defense of St. John's, look, when you win and you have a streak, expectations change. I think what St. John's has done really well in our conversation with Rick Pitino before the game is that nothing outside of the locker room really matters, and that's hard to come by in this city. It really is. You know, you're in Queens. You were the most talked about team. Everywhere you look, they're New York's team. And these young men have really figured out a way to continue to win and keep the noise out, stay together. Look, they're not done. They haven't really done much. Coach Pitino will tell you that, but going on a win streak, there's a lot more that they have to accomplish. But going pretty well right now for the Johnnies.
31 points, just trimmed to 29, but that's their largest lead in a Big East game this season. That's saying something with Creighton coming off that victory over UConn, not letting that carry over here. St. John's have handled their business.
Yeah, it's hard not to kind of compare and contrast. You know, we live in a culture of comparisons, and when you look at the two top teams in the Big East, you start to think, wait, Creighton beat UConn at home, and now they come in and play this way against St. John's. I don't know if there's anything to read into that, but to me, it does say a lot. I'm not sure what. It's something that the UConn fans probably don't want to hear or acknowledge, but boy, and every game's different. We know that. These are two totally different teams, St. John's and UConn. And totally two different teams that we've seen the last two games from Creighton.
Right. 15th turnover. St. John's has been active from the get-go defensively. Hopkins unable to finish through the contact as Prey skips it off the rim. Just looking at the stat sheet, too, 4 St. John's players in double figures as Trout knocks one down. That's his first make of the afternoon. Not a single Creighton player has scored more than 9.
And if they're not making threes, finally they get to 5, Creighton. But Isaac Trout is pretty much a non-factor if they can't get open from behind the three-point line.
And they've seen enough of this year. They've had some heart attack wins, but those cold spells that have just been devastating to their chances That's part of the reason why Creighton has not won back-to-back games in conference play this year. Last time they won back-to-back games this season, December 22nd and 30th against Utah Tech and Butler. After a trip to the East Coast, they'll head back to Omaha for a couple of games at home.
I think it's interesting as you look, 5:49 to play, 43 points for the Blue Jays, and there's going to be a challenge here, but they scored 91 points, Creighton, in Stores this week. That was the most points scored by an opponent in over 20 years in that building at UConn. That is amazing. And then you turn around and you probably think, you know, talking to Greg McDermott, maybe some residual effects of that. We can bring it to here, and with that 8-0 run to start the game pretty much set the tone for St. John's.
Yep. So while they conduct this review, we'll step aside. St. John's closing in on the finish line. Game summary sponsored by Progressive. Get slam dunk savings today. All the numbers on the right-hand side of this graphic in favor of St. John's. Looking for their first 13-game win streak in 41 years. Look at the Big East standings. We've mentioned it already. Top three separated themselves. First round bye for Creighton. That's really what's on the line for them if they're going to try to make a run in the conference tournament.
It gives you the best chance to go deep. It's hard to win every single day if you don't get that first round bye. That's what everyone's shooting for. It's been done. Not a lot.
By the way, that challenge unsuccessful. As St. John's gets the ball back and they convert. We're just looking at the standings here, talking about Seton Hall. They built up so many great results in the non-conference. If they run the table, which obviously is saying a lot considering how the conference play has gone, but they're not out of the mix entirely from an NCAA tournament. They'd have to do a lot, but they'll play St. John's late in the year, hosting them in New Jersey. Hopkins pulls down the board here.
I think teams are still trying to figure out who Seton Hall is. You know, we've seen them come back a lot. We've also seen them blow some big leads. One thing is for sure, they are fighters for Shaheen Holloway. They play like he played and how he coaches. A lot of pride, toughness.
That's a team you do not want to face at this tournament. That's part of where, you know, I guess my train of thought is going here, Donnie, is you get down to the Big East tournament, you don't want to face them on this floor.
No, because they're close enough. Seton Hall is usually, even when they're successful, they just play that underdog role so well, and they get, even fans who aren't Seton Hall Pirates fans get behind them in certain games. So I agree with you.
Creighton emptying their bench. As this will go the other way. And the mistakes have just been plentiful from the get-go.
And you had mentioned it. I mean, that's not even the most egregious. We've seen some really bad moving screens up top that have not been called. I think it's just that the officials across the board or across the country have gotten sloppy with actually calling that as a foul. So we've seen a couple called today, which are the right calls. I mean, that's 16 turnovers for Creighton, doubling what they had against UConn. That's tough.
Only average about 11 per game. This end has been the more concerning thing. But St. John's, give them a lot of credit the way they've played defensively. And it goes all the way down their rotation, too. See Hopkins coming over to help. Forced a tough pass in the end, leaving 3 to shoot for Trout. Trying to create space on Darling. A wild shot and a 30-second violation.
St. John's is right on schedule, though. They hold teams to 33% from 3 and 34 from the field. They're right there.
Introducing.
Coming up next, Christian Anderson and 13th-ranked Texas Tech look to prove they still have Final Four flavor despite losing J.T. Toppin. Red Raiders host K-State in minutes, but for now, back to Alex and Donnie inside the Garden.
Yeah, I think that's a big question. A lot of people around the country are asking about Texas Tech, a team that certainly had Final Four aspirations. We'll get to you guys in just a moment. A blowout here for St. John's, and look at their, well, I guess we'll call them a big three. Dylan Darling inserting himself into that with 15 points. These three guys alone outscoring Creighton 45-43.
Yeah, they were big today, but Dylan Darling continues to get better every game. I love his read and react. That's what basketball is about. Look, this play is for Bryce Hopkins. Top of your screen coming across. Takes too long, so Darling says, you know what, I'm going to rip this through and score myself. Great read, great job by Hopkins stopping and not gumming that up. And then the little fall away from mid-range. Continues to probe, find guys deep in shifts. Ready to catch and shoot. Really turned into one of the bright spots. And initially was plugged in for Rick Pitino. If you talk to their coaching staff, to add some toughness, a little more rougher edge to what they do defensively, and has turned into just a terrific, not only on-the-ball defender, but an offensive guard for them.
Wonder if he's getting any royalties from the Church Bells t-shirts.
Everything's based off of NIL. He's got to be, or he's got to fire his agent.
His dad was all over that, too.
Yeah.
That was kind of fun. Leotopolis drawing a foul here. They have made this into an actual trophy.
Well, you got to be careful and have all your vowels in the right place when you're talking about this. Big bells, you know, just to make sure you're clear on your vowel placement.
Or you could just go back to the produce aisle for some onions.
Onion, yeah, whatever.
However you want to describe it. They'll give Bryce Hopkins a nice hand here. Another double-double, back-to-back games. His only 2 this season. Yeah, he's been clutch even though the numbers haven't been eye-popping. You know, during this win streak, his numbers in the second half of games, shooting better than 50%. Yeah, ways to just impact the game.
Double figures in 11 of the last 13 games, though. I mean, he is really, think about this. He's got 9 rebounds or more in each of his last 4 games. That's doing some work.
I think that was the idea, right? When he transferred to St. John's, he was going to be the guy. Because we saw glimpses of that at Providence from Hopkins. And then, of course, all the injury trouble you mentioned. Hasn't completed a full season since 2023. Torn ACL. And then a setback last season. He went more than 6 months without stepping foot on a basketball court until about July last summer.
I thought he came back a little too soon. You know, when you have a coaching change, you know, sometimes, you know, things aren't always aligned, and you wanted to get back as a player a little quicker. Your new coach is anxious to see you out there. He's gotten it together now. I tell you, this is such a wonderful piece. Anytime you're picked first team Big East and you really haven't completed a season the previous 2, that's the respect that the league has for you and the coaches and writers have for you.
I think the question of this range, this shot is deflected. Leotopolis on the break leads it for Ibinayo. Getting a little bit more action off the bench in the last couple.
Ibinayo, one of those guys who's been with Rick Pitino his entire career.
Yeah.
Doesn't get a lot of love, but he's another one of those kind of Swiss Army knife guys for the Johnnies. Good move. 50's the number. That's the lowest point output for Blue Jays this season.
Rick Pitino's going to empty his bench here.
That 50 points was against Nebraska, another team you just, in-state rival you want to kind of show up for.
RJ Tamba and Fotis Konstantidis. Walk-ons off the bench. To close out what has been a rout. Darling adds to his total. Now a season high.